And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. Rassie Erasmus has officially named his 36-man squad for the end-of-year tour, and some very, very big selection calls, including a maiden call-up for former Springbok junior captain Zachary Porthen, who gets a first call-up into the squad. Despite not having played a lot of senior rugby, and he's a player that's been on the radar for a while. In fact, even a couple of years ago, Rassie mentioned that he is someone that the Boks are looking at quite intently, and they reckon that he is someone they can basically fast-track into the system. And they have basically just held their promise and brought him in. And it's going to be very interesting to sort of see if he gets an opportunity and where that opportunity might get. There's also a couple of players who return to the squad for the first time this year in the form of Dixon, Johan, Grobbelaar, Kleyn as well, as who make it their first call-ups of the season. Kleyn as well, back from injury, as well as the likes of Kurt Lawrence and Edward van der Merwe, and some big names who have been left on standby as we start to see maybe a bit of an early glimpse of what our potential World Cup squad is starting to maybe look like in terms of players who might be on the fringes, players who are kind of still in the core squad. It is still a very strong squad. Definitely a good squad to try and beat the likes of a France and Paris and Ireland in Dublin, but also a couple of surprise selections as well. Before we get to the squad, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. And let's have a look at the squad, shall we? This is the squad that Rassie Erasmus has picked. Let's go through it, shall we? In the forwards, Lood, Jager, Dixon, ahead of, probably Vincent Nche, which is quite an interesting call. Not sure I'm a big fan of the call, but he has been called up. Pieter-Steph, the Toit, Thomas the Toit, Eben, Etzebeth, Jan Grobbelaar in place of Bongi Mbonambi, who has not been called up. Jean, Kleyn, Kolisi, Wilco, Louw, Marx, Franco, Mostert returning to the squad after the Fanny even basically gave him out of the squad for a couple of matches. Nche, Ruan, Nortje, Zachary, Porthen, Kwagga Smith, Arches, Neyman, Steenekamp, Marco Vinstaden, Bowen Venter, Jan-Hendrik Vessels, and Jasper Wiese. Lots of powerful players in that forward pack. And then your backs returning, as mentioned, Kurt Lawrence, Damian De Allende, Andre Esterhuizen, Chashafambo Gomazulu, Ethan Hooker, Jason Colby, Jesse Creel, Monty Liebach, Kanan Moody, Andre Pollard, Kobus Reinach, Morne van den Berg, Edward van der Merwe, Damian Willemse, and Grant Williams. Very, very consistent in terms of the backline selections. No surprises there, really. In terms of the players who are on standby, because it's a very interesting list. Johan Augustus, who had a very strong showing against the Bulls recently, has been added to the standby list. Nettling for sure is there. Bongi Mbonambi is there, showing you maybe we are looking at potentially life after Bongi Mbonambi. In terms of Jan Grobbelaar being added to the mix, no minus van der Merwe is, I think, for me, a little bit disappointing. But, yeah, Salman Murat, Asnat, Klabakanya, Evan Rose, and Vincent Tuka. So, I mean, minus van der Merwe has gone from being in the squad, played a couple of games, to not even on the standby list, as Jan Grobbelaar gets the opportunity to put his hand up. And then your backs four on the standby list are Lekanya Sebastian de Klerk, and Makazulu Mapimpi. So, it's a big achievement, I think, for Sebastian Clark to put himself in that sort of standby list and make sure and make him known that he is on the radar for sort of further selection. It's going to be very interesting to see what the reaction to the squad is. I think in general, it's more or less reasonably expected, but I think that there are some pretty big selection calls that have been made, and I feel really, really bad for Marx van der Merwe. I don't know, I just didn't feel he really get the opportunity, to be honest. I really liked what I did see of him when he did play. So I don't know if it's a case of maybe what was saying in training, for example, or they just don't really rate him that highly. We've seen this before, actually, with players who kind of come in. Evan Rose is probably a good example, and just doesn't seem to really capture the backing of the coaches. So Johan Grobbelaar gets an opportunity after sort of falling out of the mix, and he was quite high up. In fact, he was, being considered basically the genuine number 3 option a couple of years ago. So he gets an opportunity, but I really feel for Marx van der Merwe, because I think with a few more games and a bit more opportunity, I think he could have had one of those, breakout games where he really puts his hand up and puts himself in the mix. Good to see Jean Kleyn back. We keep speaking about the fact that we've got so many fives, for example, but we just don't have that genuine option for Eben Etzebeth in the number 4. We tried Kovacs Visa. He's not part of the squad. Jean Kleyn back from injury. And I think he's probably the closest we do have to that kind of replacement. I think Dixon over Vincent Tuka is a very interesting call as well. Again, I feel sorry for Nche. I thought he had some really good games for the Boks and didn't do anything wrong. So it was one thing to basically say there just wasn't space for him in the squad, but now you are picking somebody over him and ahead of him. And, you might sit there saying, well, it's about exploring options, but you'd think if Vincent Tuka is in the World Cup frame, he'd be going. He'd be getting into that mix. He'd be a player that would want to give more games. I think what's quite interesting and quite cool to see is somebody like a Bowen Venter, who's been retained in the squad despite the addition of Gerard Stennekamp coming back in. Yeah. And Bowen Venter is somebody who wasn't even on the radar really, a year ago, maybe on the radar, like the wider radar, but was not in last year's, 50-odd playing group. This year he's come in, he's played a full, incoming tour, stayed with the squad, rugby championship, stayed with the squad, and now he's been backed within the last 36-man squad of the year, which means he has been part of all the Springbok squads of the year. So it's funny how life can do that to you a little bit in terms of a bit of luck, in terms of a couple of injuries. You come and you impress, and all of a sudden you are within the setup. But let's talk about Zachary Porthen. I mean, this is a guy who has not played a tremendous amount of senior rugby. But he is somebody that the Boks have been looking at for a long time. I mean, for a 21-year-old tight head to get the call up is a massive backing. And I think that this is very much due to the worry about what's going to happen to Asnath in Klabakanya in December. If he gets cleared in terms of his case and there's nothing issue, I think he comes straight back into the squad. The fact that he is on standby means that they are basically not discarding him, in inverted commas. Nedley Bashir is there as well. But they've gone with a 21-year-old who has played a sum total of 4 URC matches. So he's played 4, professional international competition matches, URC or Champions Cup, likes of that. He has only played a total of 70. He's played less than a full game worth of international competitions. He's obviously played Currie Cup. He's been involved in the Currie Cup and quite heavily involved in the Currie Cup. But he's not played a lot of senior rugby. And we saw this as well, a little bit with Jan-Hendrik Vessels, where players, even Kenemu to a certain degree, where there are just certain players with a Boks are willing to roll the dice in. And I think a lot of it is about, will he necessarily make the final squad? Maybe not. But if there are injuries, for example, and they go to him and he's been able to get these caps, then he could just be a little bit of an unknown factor. He could be a little bit of a surprise player that can bring in that can do a potential job. So it's a very interesting selection in itself. I don't think there's too many other massive omissions. I think that Mongi Manambi being left out, for me, kind of felt a bit inevitable. I probably would have liked to have seen a Johan Augustus in the squad and just seen what he can do. Nedley Bashir coming back from injury, for example. I think we knew that Lekanya and Maxima Pimpi are more fringe players at the moment than sort of, regulars. You got the likes of Ethan Hooker, who's really sort of cemented a spot in the squad, but good to see that Edwil van der Merwe is back, because I do think that, Edwil, Ches and Kirtley, now Ethan Hooker are top 4 wings, and especially from an age profile, it works. But it's lots of interesting calls. So what do you think of the squad? Let me down in the comments below. And let's chat about it, shall we? Let's get into it. Let's sort of see what are we thinking and where are we at with the squad. I'm actually going to put out a poll and say, here we go. Do you like the squad? Simple yes, no. Yes, no. And if you don't like the squad, and I always ask for that, let me know why. What are your issues with the squad? And who would you like? I'm seeing a couple of people saying they like to see this player instead of that player. And that's good. That's the kind of engagement we want to see and the conversations we want to have. But most importantly, first up, go and vote on that poll and let me know what you think and where you are at with the squad. And then we can go. I'm going to read some of the comments and really sort of get into it in a little bit. Let's have some water and then we can dive into the comments, shall we? On a Monday morning, miserable Monday morning in Johannesburg. It has rained all weekend and it is cold and miserable, and yeah, that's our Monday. Well, What can you do? What can you do? Yeah. So if we look at some of the comments, let's go through to it over here. Earlier, Pitch Van der was saying, glad to see you on here, 100,000 subs. Well done, Greens from the UK. Yeah, I reckon we get in the next 2 weeks. So if you are new, please make sure you do smash like on the video. And Ruggerman was talking about Zach. Porthen gets a call saying some interesting names in there. Ricky Lowe says, very good squad. A lot of guys are back. Ricky then saying he's very surprised that Grobbelaar is above Van der Merwe. Christian, I agree with you, saying feel sorry for Marx Van der Merwe. But JP saying surprised Kwagga Horn wasn't picked. Marx saying Marx and JL Dupree very unlucky. I don't think JL Dupree is actually available, to be honest. I think he's got that injury. I'm pretty sure surgery over there. Annette was saying love the squad, but disappointed that Van Wyk and Julius didn't get their call up even just for the Japan game. Ultra Sharpshooter says Zach is a surprise, but not undeserved. If he plays well, Vincent Koch is done. Bold call, bold call. But we haven't seen Vincent Koch play, and I suppose he is also one of the big absentees in the squad. So yeah, I think that this we're now looking at lots of new tight heads. I think this is the big thing. Nicholas saying so sad Evan Roos isn't awarded for his unreal form over the last season and a half. Rob was saying Vince needs to be in the squad. Christian reckons that Stratuka swap for Mostert, in my opinion. Yeah, you could have it it's not entirely a straight swap. Franco much more of a number 5, pretty out and out 5 that can play at 7 when needed. JP says heard through the grapevine that Rassie doesn't rate Roos at all, not suited for the way they want to play at international level. Surprising, but he never really put up his hand in a Bok jersey. Tend to agree. Chris O'Sullivan says, great to see how much depth we have. Not many countries can name a 36-man squad and have the supporters name a totally different 36-man squad. LDF says, desperate to see Trocky there. He is like for like with Jasper. And somebody else put clips also saying Johan should have has a lot of experience, should have been included. Alyssa asking, isn't Vincent a much better flanker than Ben Jason Dixon? Well, I'll tell you my biggest problem with the selection, not a problem with the selection, but where I'm at with the selection is I felt that when Vincent got the call up, he took the call up. You know, he took the opportunity. He was very good, I thought, against Italy, and I think his debut I thought was tremendous. And I think that when he ever got the opportunity, he looked really, really comfortable. Conversely, if we go back a year, and Ben Jason Dixon got that chance, because I was a big proponent for Ben Jason Dixon. I said that he is, Pieter-Steph reborn. But I just don't think he took his opportunity that well. So I don't know if this is now the second opportunity to get, but I felt that Vincent grabbed his opportunity a lot more than Ben Jason Dixon did. And I would like to have seen that being rewarded. Yes, obviously you got to explore all your options, and Vincent's been good for the Stormers. So now I think they're saying, right, well, let's give him another chance and the likes of that. But yeah, I just don't feel that he took the chance that Vincent, that Vincent did. And I mean, we've seen players like a Bone Fenter, that how much he's taken that opportunity, and I'd love to have seen Vincent been given that chance. And yeah, I mean, if we look at the squad itself, it shows you where we are in terms of being such a good area to be in terms of, we're now debating over like, Vincent, Ben Jason Dixon. But I think at the end of the day, we're sitting here going, we would like to see it. And I think it's our preference, but I don't think we've got the sort of, like selection crisis that I think a lot of people are saying, obviously, that the All Blacks have, and I think that's a big one, and I think that's what's quite interesting. I think about the whole thing is the fact that we are already starting to almost nitpick at the moment versus having to look at like some squads and basically being saying that the squad's just not good enough. I think we all know the squad is very much good enough, and we're very happy with it. But yeah, I think that's going to be the big question mark moving forward, is those small selections, really. Who gets the chance when when we're sort of between those kind of fringe players in like a final 33-man squad. But it's a good question that's been raised. I think who was it? Ultimate Sharpshooter saying the big question mark is who is the other fullback, and that's the big thing. Obviously, no outplay of Fassi due to injury. That's why somebody was mentioning, I think it was JP, saying surprise Kwagga Horn didn't get the call up, and I agree. I think this would have been the perfect opportunity. You probably could have had him ahead of one of the scrum offs, for example. Which one? I'm not entirely sure. But I mean, there's no 5 de Klerk at the moment, for example, and it kind of shows you also we're starting to probably see life after 5 de Klerk. But yeah, I think he would have been a very good addition to the squad. You maybe could have had him ahead of one of the wings, for example, but the problem is who. The fact that Eben van der Merwe played fullback for the Sharks, is that maybe a sign that they might look at him at fullback for? Obviously, we've got other options in Sasha that can play fullback as well. So that's probably the thinking there. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Sasha potentially start fullback for one of the games. You know, maybe the Japan game or something like that. Take that risk. We take that risk. Because I think it's a very cool risk to take. But it's going to be interesting to sort of see, you know, is he going to get a chance, for example, and how much of a chance is he going to get? And that's going to be the interesting thing for the tour, is to see who gets chances when. And somebody was saying that Ben Jason Dixon was unbelievably good since coming back. I think he has been very good, but I still think I still would have liked to have seen Vincent rewarded for the way I think he played for the Bok jersey. And as Kolb said, really not for the Bok jersey. And as Kolb said, really not a fan of Ben Jason Dixon. Rather, Ruan Venter or Van Heerden from the Stormers is better than VG Day. I feel the same as Head. Just me says unpopular opinion, but Ruben Van Heerden deserves at least a Japan cap. I don't think it's that unpopular, to be honest. I think Ruben Van Heerden is one of those players who a lot of people are sitting there going, why isn't he getting the opportunity? Why is he being backed? You know, what is going on there? So I don't really understand it, to be honest. I can't answer that question. I'm not in the coaching staff, not in the team meetings, unfortunately. Magnum says, generally happy with the team. I would have also liked to see Vincent get a nod, though. I agree that when he got a Springbok chance, he grabbed it with both hands and showed he can actually add value. Nicholas says 5 loose head options. I think this has been the year of the prop experimentation, hasn't it? We've really looked to build up prop depth. And it's so good to see Gerald Steenkamp back in the squad, but they've still kept Bowen Venter. We've still got Jan-Hendrik Wessel as an option. We've still got Nche. We've got Thomas the Toy. You can kind of do both. So there's a lot going on. And that in that respect, it's very exciting to sort of see how much depth we've built. It's very, very hard to get right. And he is getting it right. I mean, he must have lots of offers on the table if he decided to walk away from like top 14 clubs and the likes of that, who will pay him a lot of money to go and sort out those scrums, because he's just the scrum guru at the moment. Jean says, super happy Kirkley and Edville are back. Lots of competition should keep everyone sharp. Would love Augustus in the squad. Offensive says, to be honest, I would forgo Jesse in favour of Kwagga Horn. I just don't see the utility we get from having Jesse in the squad. If anything, has been making fatal errors. So basically now we're dropping players because he only covers one position. I think it's a bit harsh. Jesse Creel's been phenomenal in the last couple of years. He had a couple of reasonably good tests this year. He maybe not have been his best year of test rugby, but I think he still has plenty to offer, to be perfectly honest. So I've got no issue keeping him around there. But I would like to see a Kwagga Horn in the squad. I would like to see him. I think he deserves the opportunity. I think he's playing so well. I think he's such a class player. Kwagga Horn. I think he's got so much composure on the ball. I think he's deceptively fast. He's got a really good boot. I think he's a really good all-round player. And I'd love to see him getting more opportunities. I think he would be a very valuable member of the squad come 2027, even if not an initially squad, but an injury replacement for the likes of that. You know, I just look at him and think that he's just class, absolute class. Obviously, also no Willie Louw, which we kind of expected, not even on the standby list. So we've potentially seen the end of him. Changing of the guards, definitely the theme of the squad. No Vincent Koch, no Willie Louw, Bongi Manambi on standby, Mapimpi on standby, Lekanya on standby. We are definitely seeing a new version of the Springbok squad. Vincent Koch on, not being left out, a 21-year-old coming in. There's about 15 years between them. That's how big of a shift we are seeing. in regards to that. So it's a very interesting squad in terms of being able to see which players have kind of been replaced, or at least we're looking at options to. I mean, I think, for example, the hookers, you know, maybe they're thinking, right, we've seen enough from Marx van der Merwe, but I think it's weird that he's not on the standby list, because I think that I would have him on the standby list ahead of Bongi Mbonambi, and the fact that he's not on the standby list kind of shows you that he is down to 4th choice or even 5th choice. So it's difficult. I think the main thing is I think a lot of people just don't really know what the squad's going to look like. And it's huge of a quiet horn. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting situation there. Apologies for some of the lags, people. We have had technical difficulties all morning. It's the piece is going to go slow. The weather's affecting it, obviously. So we're going to continue for a few more minutes, and then we're going to wrap it up. But we will obviously have some more information as we get in terms of some of the thinking of the press of the selections. You know, in terms of what Rassie had to say. You know, he spoke about the fact that Japan have beaten us before, that Italy put up a good fight in Pretoria this year, Wales beat Japan. So they said that even those 3 non-challenging tests of Vodacom are going to be a challenge. Obviously, you've got to kind of say that, but I do think we are going to see some interesting sides. I do think you are going to see, for example, maybe a Zachary Porthen against a Japan, or probably against a Wales at the end of the tour. I also think our results will also necessitate and win the first 4. We can really rotate against Wales, and whatever happens. But yeah, people, thank you very much for joining me over here. We're gonna close off there now, because who knows why, but they've got issues there. So thank you for joining me. We will be back live tomorrow to kind of dissect this a bit more. So please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll see you guys